Good evening, good people. So apologies that I am slightly running late today. I'm not going to, we may go over the hour, possibly, it just depends. But you know that I normally don't like doing this. So apologies for the late running. It's really not how I like to start the show, because I'm normally on the other platform before I come on here. But thank you for joining anyway. So guys, if you're, hi Faye, thank you for jumping on here. Huge apologies for running late this evening. And I know that, you guys are joining, so thank you very much for your patience. Do forgive me. This does not happen often at all. Don't know why today of all days it did. Rosemary, thank you for joining. How are you? Do share this live. Let's get people involved in this conversation. I think it's really, really important. So for those of you who don't know what we're going to be talking about today, it is about the young boy who was murdered in school by the name of Sylvester Oromoni Jr. So yes, we are going to have a conversation about our schools. We're going to have a conversation about our children. Hi, Princess. How are you doing? Please, please, please do share this very important live. Hi, Missy. Thank you for joining. I know you sent me a message, but I wasn't able to click on. Hello, Abna. How are you doing? Hi, Sonia. How are you? Ernest, how are you doing? Oh, gosh, I'm trying to scroll really quickly. You guys are joining thick and fast. Hi, Shell. How are you doing? Lovely to have you guys on here. And I, once again, have to apologize profusely for running late. This was like really not in my plans to do so. So apologies. I haven't even got myself a glass of water. That is how I was. Evans Odom, how are you doing? I hope you're well. Lovely to have you on here. Guys, this is a very important conversation about our children, about safeguarding our children. There are so many things that we need to be speaking about tonight. So I would ask you, if there was ever a live that you were going to share, please make sure that it's this one. So please, can you share this live and have people involved in this conversation? This is about a young boy who was murdered in school in Nigeria. And as I was saying very briefly on the other platform, that this is not just about Nigeria or Nigerian children. I have a daughter that was in private school. It wasn't boarding. And I'm going to share some of the issues that I had and give you some advice as well. So a lot of us have either been to boarding schools, especially if we're from Ghana or Nigeria and other parts of the world. It's quite common for us to go to boarding school. So this conversation is really important. And for those of us that are just so old, if we finished going to boarding school, our kids have finished, but then we also have our grandchildren. I haven't got any grandchildren yet. I'm too young for grandkids. But you know what I mean. Yemisi says, hi, Dilys. I'm at an event now. I'm sharing. Bless you. Thank you so much, sis. It's such a shame that I can't have your views on here, but I know that you would be here if you could, because you are always here. So God bless you. Louisa, thank you for being on here, Louisa Grande. Beatrice, thank you for being on here. Evelyn, thanks for joining. Oh, Auntie Jenny, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much, because I really do need your support on this one as well. Shirley, thank you for being on here. I'm trying to say hello to you guys as quickly as possible. Jackie Roxon, Dato Akanji, thank you for being on here as well. Kerry Mussington, bless you and thank you for sharing. Doreen as well. Guys, can you please share this video? I'm going to get cracking. Now, normally, I'm so well organized that when I sit on here, I've got my water or I've got my cup of coffee, and I don't like having to take you around my kitchen to do that. So how I'm going to talk for a whole hour without any water or anything is probably going to be a little bit difficult. So how do I do this? Do you mind me getting a drink? If not, I will. If you don't mind me just grabbing some water, because I do get really, really thirsty, because I talk non-stop practically for an hour. Give me a thumbs up, or give me some hearts. Hi, Abadallas, thank you for being on here. Belladonna, lovely to have you. Shireen, thank you. I am doing all sorts of experiments with the makeup every week. Dottie, thank you for joining me. Okay, so I can go and get a drink, so thank you so much. And I am really gonna get into this conversation. So yes, as I said, I don't normally take you around my kitchen, but I will so guys, just relax. We are gonna have a very tough conversation, but at the same time, an extremely necessary one. So as we are going to be getting into it, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to read out what the what the... Sorry, I had to go into another room. Why me? Okay, so I'm going to read out what this episode is about today. There is quite a bit of information that's going around. I don't want to go ahead of myself, but what I will say is I want us to be as open and as honest as we can be. And this is not about apportioning blame or anything, because at the end of the day, a young boy has lost his life, 11. I know there's reports that he's 12. It was just before his 12th birthday. But you know what? Let us get cracking. So for those of you that don't know me and are watching this for the first time, my name is Dilys, and I put together Speak with Dilys so that we could have conversations that we don't normally have, because either they're uncomfortable or they're too controversial, or because it's just not the kind of thing we talk about. So that is what you will find when you come on Speak with Dilys. Now, it's a space that is very respectful. You'll find that people share amazing advice and input. So what I will typically do is I will do my little spiel and we'll have a conversation, and I will read your comments. So do keep your comments coming, because I will read them. Guys, I think today, this topic, for some reason, I just feel not to be worried about time constraints too much. What I will ask for you to do, especially those of you who are either in Nigeria or from Nigeria, I would like you to tag your friends, and I would like you to share this video, because there's things that I am doing behind the scenes in regards to this story that I need your voices more than just as much as anyone's, or more than anyone's. Okay, so this is why Speak with Dilys was put together. Essentially, I speak about things that matter, people that count, and information that needs to be heard. Very, very important. Thank you so much for sharing, Rosemary. Adele, thank you for being on here. Sharon, lovely to have you. Yes, you just got here in time. I was running a little bit late, so I've had to apologise to everyone. Shireen, thank you for being on here. God bless you, Kerry. Thank you. So that's why Speak with Dilys exists. Guys, I want to see more people on here having this conversation. If you've got kids or you know anyone with children, share away, and let's talk. So if you didn't hear the background story as to why this 7th episode of Speak with Dilys, called Justice for Sylvester, was put together, I'm going to read to you what it's about, and then we're going to get into it. So, good evening, good people. It is great to be back for the 7th edition of Speak with Dilys. We are halfway through the series. It's gone real quick. We've had 7 amazing, topics and discussions here. But today's one is quite sad, and it's real cause for concern. And the 7th episode is called Justice for Sylvester. So here goes. You send your child to school to get an education, to gain an experience of life and childhood beyond textbooks and exams. The stepping stone for their career goals. Then you get that call that your child is hurt in an environment where you assumed they were safe. 11-year-old Sylvester Oromoni Jr. was that child, beaten, bullied and brutalised. He never managed to make it home, but he did manage to name his killers. What really goes on in our boarding schools? How safe are our children? Does safeguarding play any real role in our education system, especially on the continent? Why wasn't Sylvester adequately protected? How powerful are these cults that allegedly played a part in this heinous act? How does justice work for the rich? Where are the boys who were alleged to have been a part of this murder? Okay, so for those of you that didn't know, this is what we are going to be speaking about tonight. Okay, someone said you need me hydrated. Yeah, I get really thirsty. I think I was actually on an interview on a show on Thursday, and I think I went through a whole bottle. So I don't think it'll be much different today. So a few announcements before we get into it. So as I said, my name is Dilys. This is what I do. I am also a certified and qualified life coach. I work in the area of relationships predominantly, and also grief coaching as well. I did run a charity called Who Will Hear My Cry on rape, child abuse and domestic violence, and basically anything to do with the welfare of children. And this is why these stories really strike a chord with me. So in case you're wondering, why is it such a big deal for me? There is, apart from the fact that I'm a mother, I'm human, and it is something that is concerning. That is my background, as well. So I also do public speaking. I am also an events host as well. And so if you have any kind of events that you would like me to host for you, do get in touch, and I can assure you it will be a very, very entertaining evening. Okay, so we've got all that out of the way. I'll get to the rest later on. But as I said in the beginning, I did speak, maybe that was on the other platform, I did speak with Sylvester Omoroni's auntie, and her name is Josephine Say, and I spoke with her this morning, and she shared some of her views and her feelings about what had happened. Now, she was going to come on the show, but you know, it was very, very short notice. She didn't realise it was this evening, so unfortunately she won't be here, but I have her explicit permission to share the content of our conversation during the course of this live, and you'll see what she thinks about this as well. Thank you to those of you who have shared. Nasira Mohammed, thank you for being here. Hello, SC Card, lovely to have you all the way from America. And Jamal Conte, thank you for being on here. And Temitope, and all you wonderful people, Survivor, Sumad, so many of you are jumping on here thick and fast. It's really lovely to have you on here. Shameen says, didn't know about this story, so I have just Googled it. Yeah, she said, you're already mad. Well, it's going to get a whole lot worse. Yemi Ogun, thank you so much. Please, guys, especially my Nigerian brothers and sisters, can you please share this live? It is a conversation that we need to have. If you've got nieces, nephews in school back in Nigeria, or your own children back there, we need to have this conversation. This is information that is very, very much required. So I want to see as many people on here, especially from there, because this is not the first time. I don't want to go ahead of myself, so let's get into this. So basically, Sylvester reported that he was bullied. He mentioned that he was being beaten. He mentioned that he was having some problems. So he did call home, he spoke to his parents, and because he was ringing home apparently on a weekly basis, asking for money, even though he was being given the tune of 60,000 naira every week, which should have been more than adequate for a child in school. He's only 11. But for whatever reason, and we do know what the reason is now, that money was never adequate because it was being taken from him by these bullies. So he was being harassed, he was being bullied, and he was afraid. So Sylvester was in the boarding house at a school that his other siblings of his older siblings and a younger sibling were in that school. So it wasn't like the parents didn't have any experience of this school, and they had said they felt that it was okay because their older daughter had been in the school and there was no problem. Guys, if you're on this live, find 5 people that you can share this live with. So just click, and invite 5 people on here, and let's get this convo going. Now, one of the things that these boys did to Sylvester was to beat him and ask him, and the reason for the beating was that they wanted him to describe the private parts of his older sister, okay? They wanted Sylvester, 11-year-old boy, to describe the private parts of his sister. Now, of course, that is not something that he could do. So, to stop the beating, he said yes, he had, and he just came up with something. So what these boys then did was spread the rumour around the school, which obviously is a form of bullying, a form of harassment, embarrass the child, and this went around the school. Okay, so as a result of some of these things that went on, the boys were suspended. They were suspended and they came back to school. And my understanding is that Sylvester was moved to another boarding house. Now, the parents had been aware that Sylvester wasn't happy because obviously the boys were suspended and the parents were aware that their child was going through this issue. Now, what they said was, when they sent Sylvester back to school, they thought that everything was fine. Now, in order for me, in all good conscience, to impart the information that I think, or have the conversation rather, I think we need to have, I'm going to have to be really honest. And, my condolences to the parents of this child. And the reason why I felt it necessary to have the conversation was not just to express the outrage and the hurt and the general feeling of how people have responded to this story, but to look at the things that we need to put in place as a society, because this is not just about Nigeria, believe you me. I live in England, and I know the experience I had with my daughter when she was in a private school. It is also about how we relate to our children in certain circumstances. So we're going to, break it down. Guys, do keep your comments coming. Only a few of you have shared. Please share this live and let's have this conversation. Tag your friends or in the comments box, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. And let's get this going, because the more we operate within ignorance, this is when these situations are going to happen. I was shocked when I was doing my research on this story. I was shocked at how little information parents ask for, parents are given, and parents and schools need to have in place a standard. I was actually quite shocked. And in 2021, with all the things that are going on in this world, the one thing that we can't afford as parents is to be taken by surprise. We really can't. Okay, so do keep your comments coming. I'll read them out in a moment. So the parents, as I said, they were told that the boys had been moved, but there was no real follow-up. Thank you, Faith, for sharing. There was no follow-up in regards to the welfare of Sylvester as a, how can I put it? As a conversation that was ongoing between the school. Now, when Sylvester, so basically on the 27th, I think it was the 27th of November, in the dead of the night, these boys stormed into his room. I think there was 5 of them. Stormed into his room and they beat the living daylights out of him. Jumped on him, beat him, and then gave him a substance to drink, some kind of concoction. Now, for those of you that have seen the pictures of Sylvester before he passed away, his lips are blistered and swollen. And this child apparently was in so much pain that to touch his skin was painful for him. He had to be helped to do whatever. Now, the school claim that Sylvester fell during a football match. That's what they said. The school claimed that Sylvester fell during a football match at school. That's the best that they could come up with. However, when Sylvester's father eventually was able to get to him, because he was in another state, when he was able to see his son, he said that the fear when he asked his son what was wrong was palpable. Eventually, his son admitted that he was beaten and that he was given something to drink. And he was asked if he could name the people that did that to him, and he was able to name them. So we have the name, or the names rather, of the boys. Yes, Kakra. Kakra says, what? The school is covering up. It wouldn't be the first time. Tasha, thank you for joining. Evelyn says, there should have been safeguarding put in place for Sylvester. Poor boy. This is hard, actually, because it's hard to speak about and it's hard to imagine. And it's hard to imagine for me because this child was scared, yet he was sent back into that environment. And I'm really trying. I would hate for Sylvester's parents to watch this and feel that I was harsh in any way, because it's really not my intention. But there is a conversation that we have to have that requires honesty. So I think, let me just put that disclaimer there, because it's important that we go there. So Adele says he should have been taken to the hospital. He was taken to the hospital. As to how quickly he was taken to the hospital, I don't know. As to how quickly his parents were informed, I don't know that either. Okay, so Sylvester named his killers. And I'm going to name his killers. Michael Kashamu. He apparently is the son of late Senator Buruji Kashamu. The next one, His name is Angel Temile. Not very angelic. Third, Favor Benjamin. Fourth, Edward Brown. And I'll tell you about Edward Brown in a minute. Fifth, Agboro Emmanuel. So Dowan College is where this took place. Dowan College, I think it's in Lekki. So at present, the Lagos State Governor has closed down the school pending investigation. Okay? That's what is being said. Pending investigation. Let's see what comes of it. Now, the things that jumped up at me, guys, if you're watching this and you are Nigerian, or you have relatives in Nigeria, or you have any children or nieces or nephews, grandchildren, whatever, that are in school in Nigeria, I would like you to tag people, because I would also like to hear from people who are specifically from Nigeria as well, and what your experience has been in school. So I really am interested to have you guys on here. This is not the first time I'm covering a story. If you remember Deeper Life, I think it was at the beginning of this year, because the year's gone so quickly with all this COVID thing. Time has kind of gone a little bit weird for a lot of us. There was a similar situation where a boy was sexually abused in Deeper Life, and there was nothing but cover up after cover up after cover up. Now, the principal of this school, the headmaster of the school, rang the parents of Sylvester, and the only thing that they were interested in was why the family was sharing pictures and videos of Sylvester's murder and of the beating. That was the priority of the school. Not how is your child doing? Not, oh my goodness, we will do whatever we can to ensure that we get to the bottom of what happened. Because, I mean, you've seen the footage. I mean, so many people have seen the footage. Thousands and millions have seen the footage. But that was their priority. And it's something that is very, very, very characteristic of our schools. When anything happens, the first thing to do is go into defense mode and cover up mode. Now, my understanding is that 2 of these boys have actually fled the country. It's a well-to-do school. They're quite affluent. I mean, if you've got senators' kids going there, you know that it's not a school that is for poor people. And as we know, the rules of the game back in Africa is money talks. Money always seems to talk. Justice, I always say, is for the poor. When the rich are involved, justice doesn't work. So 2 of these boys apparently are to, it's been said that one is in Canada and one has fled somewhere else. I don't know. But 2 of them are not in the country. Apparently no one knows where the rest of them are. It was alleged that a convoy of cars came and collected, I think, one of the boys from school. I'm going to read some of your comments in a minute. So I want to get into some of the areas that made this thing possible and why this is not a simple issue to solve, but I don't believe it's impossible. Now, one of the reasons that was given, and some of you guys are going to have to help me with the lady's name because I think she's bang out of order. But one of the reasons as to why Sylvester was subjected to this was because they were trying to force him to join a cult. They wanted to force Sylvester to join a cult. Now, from what I have been told, that back in Nigeria, back in the day, maybe people my age group, or maybe even younger, cult initiation was more characteristic of those at university. It wasn't really something that happened in the primary and secondary schools. However, my understanding is that it's something that is becoming more and more commonplace. Now, this issue in regards to cult initiation, part of the cult initiation can involve girls being gang raped, boys being beaten, and all sorts of other evils going on. Now, there's a lady, and I'm sure I just forgot to put her name in my notes. However, what I would like you guys to do is just remind me of her name. And she claims that, some people have no shame. She claims that Sylvester wanted to join the cult. So he was a willing participant. On a common sense level, how is that possible when this child was removed from the company of these boys because they had bullied him in the past and had been suspended for it? So how is it then the case that he is now volunteering himself to say that I want to be I want to be beaten to join a cult. So we have a few issues here that are a challenge to us when we send our children to boarding school. One of the things that came up for me was the manner in which it was handled. A child falls ill, apparently, or a child falls during a football match as you claim they fell. What is the protocol that is followed, or what is the procedure that's in place when a child is hurt? And how quickly are children's parents notified? How quickly is medical assistance sought for them? Because from what I read of this story, what happened was the child fell ill and they were looking for places to take the child for medical assistance. And in the interim was being treated for malaria. Africans, Nigerians, Ghanaians, I beg you. Every time your child is sick is not as a result of a mosquito bite. Please. Every time a child is ill, the first thing they treat for malaria. I understand that it may be the most common thing. But when the school have said that this boy fell, and as a result of him falling, his whole lips are swollen, lips are cracked and what have you, how then do you assume that has now turned into malaria? Guys, if you're watching, 5 of you, please share this and let's have this conversation. As I've said, I'm really interested to hear from people who are either in Nigeria, schooled in Nigeria or Nigerian, to share their experiences of what boarding school life was. The other thing that I want to get onto and to bring to light is this. When we look at our boarding school system back home, the fact of the matter is the students run the school. The seniors run the school. And it has always been like that. When I was talking about the LGBTQ bill in Ghana that they were looking to pass, and I said that the LGBTQ community are not a new phenomenon, and that anybody that has been to boarding school knows that when it comes to homosexuality and lesbianism, it is rife, it's part of the culture. And some of you are saying, no, it's not part of our culture. I said, yes, it is. The fact that we don't like it and the fact that we may be ashamed of it does not mean it's not a part of our culture. That is our culture because it is prevalent. It is something that happens all the time. And I said, unless we have what I called a secondary school genocide, those children who engage in same-sex relationships come out of school and become your politicians, your pastors, yes. They become the bank managers and what have you. They don't just vanish off the face of this earth. So the hypocrisy is what I was trying to address. And why I have mentioned it is because it is relevant to what is happening in this situation. That we are aware of what goes on within secondary schools, but we turn a blind eye to it and put our children in those situations without implementing any kind of safeguards. Some of the men have been sexually abused as boys in school. Many of you, because I speak to a lot of you. Many of the girls were initiated into lesbian activities whilst they were in school. It happens all the time. The bullying and what have you. I witnessed some of it. So why is it when we are sending our children into these said environments that we are not having these conversations with our children, at the very least to prepare them for what essentially is inevitable, because we aren't having a wider conversation to put the necessary measures in place in order to protect our children? And like I said, it's a very difficult one for me because as a parent, I feel for his parents. But at the same time, for those parents who have a chance to keep your child safe after the fact, because somebody's child has paid a price, this should be a turning point for schools in Nigeria, in Ghana, across, parts of the continent where we are very, very slack when it comes to protection of children, to start to think about safeguarding, about child protection, about policies and procedures that we need to put in place to protect our children. It is important. Okay, so let me read some of your comments, and I'd like to just welcome some of you that I saw coming on. Saeed Welcome, Sarge. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining. Lovely having you back here, Claudette. God bless you. I'm going to read your comment in a second. Apostle Isaac Olujide. So as you guys know, that I'm a minister in New Glory Chapel, and that the founder of New Glory is Apostle Isaac Olujide, and I am absolutely honoured to have Apostle on here. Thank you so much for being here, Apostle. Nikki D, thank you for being on here as well. I will read some of your comments. Who else is on here? Alison Asafoy J and Nairai Makona, thank you for being on here. Margarita Cruz as well. Thank you. If you'll say big sis, thank you for being on here as well. And please do share. 5 of you share this and let's have a wider conversation. So some of your comments are coming through thick and fast. I'm just scrolling up and seeing. Let me just try and start from the beginning. There's so many of them. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's start from Dochi. Said they have changed the name. They have changed the name all of a sudden. I don't know what that was in relation to. So Dochi might have to put another comment there. Louise Norris, thank you for joining. And then Kerry Mustin said, but safeguarding is the key place that needs to hold people accountable. Safeguarding is the weak link in services. 100%, you are absolutely not wrong. Margarita Cruz says, how this is not all on the news. Was this boy's work the reason? No, this is actually happening in Nigeria. It was on BBC Africa, so it has done the round. So if you Google it, you'll find it. But we will get into that in a second as well. Aisha Ankra says, my question is, the laws relating to violence, cultism and child rights, are they strong enough? One thing with Africa that I will tell you now, the laws are always there. The laws will always work for the poor. But the moment you are rich or the moment you come from an affluent family, the laws suddenly become watered down. And then you find that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and chasing shadows. These 2 boys who were named have been taken, 2 out of the 5 boys are out of the country. So I think what the idea is that they're trying to get the boys brought back into the country. But we know how some of these things are going to work. And I'm not going to say what is in my head to give anybody any ideas. But let's see what happens if those children are going to be extradited back to Nigeria for them to be able to face, to be made accountable for what happened. Amadorine says, I believe the parent needed to follow up with the situation and not leave it up to the school. I do agree. I believe this is Anita, because she is one of my admins, so she shows up as me, so I know it's kind of weird, so I'm not messaging myself. She says, glad to hear the school has been, I can't see what the rest of that comment is, Anita, so please do post it again. Ernest Akomia says, parents are partly to blame. Most parents, after finding out about certain inhumane acts done to their kids, are not bold enough to take the matter up further for investigation and probe due to the fear of their wards being victimized or intimidated. The system has always been corrupt, but the aggressive and bold voices of parents will change the system and save the next system. You know what? I can't argue with you. And, for me, I'm trying not to say to parents, well, it was your fault, because how does that help them in particular? Because they are going through the unimaginable and they're blaming themselves, I'm sure, enough without me blaming them. Guys, I have to take a swig of water. Thank you for that. So, Sharon Babola says, oh yes, I remember the tragic story of Deeper Life. Yes, Deeper Life, that boy was sexually abused and the school just did that typical deny, and it was terrible. Amadorine says, we as parents have a duty of care and cannot put all our trust in schools because schools will always have their reputation. And that is the crux of the matter. The school will always have their reputation. The only way that we can mitigate against that, to some degree, is to hold the school accountable to do what they say they will do. So, for example, where you have a school that does not have a bullying policy, doesn't have a safeguarding policy, in other words, a policy that says, in the event that your child is being bullied by another child, we, the school, are going to do X. We, the school, are going to do Y. We, the school, are going to do Z. We will suspend that other child pending investigation. What we will do is we will separate the children. We will see to it that these children have got no contact. Those are the things that the school are supposed to say, if they have a policy. But where they have no policy, you can't hold them accountable to an assumption, okay? You cannot hold a school accountable to an assumption. Neither can you hold a school accountable to common sense, because common sense is not common. What you can hold a school accountable for is something written in black and white that states clearly what the school's responsibility is, such that when they fail, you can pinpoint exactly where they have failed. What a lot of people and a lot of parents have done is rely on the goodwill. Goodwill does not exist when something goes wrong. It doesn't exist. Goodwill is non-existent. The same way the name somebody doesn't exist when something goes wrong. So for example, you ring somewhere and you're given some information and it's wrong, and as a result it causes you a loss or an inconvenience, and you say, I spoke to somebody. Somebody doesn't exist. Unless you have a name, say, I spoke to Dilys, I spoke to John, I spoke to Peter, I spoke to Harry. Somebody doesn't exist, and somebody will not come out from under the shadows and take responsibility. Well, it's the same thing with our schools. If we do not make it our business to say, can you show me what your policy is on bullying? Can you show me, in the event that a child is sexually assaulted, what do you do? What is the process? What is the procedure? Who do you contact? How is that child protected until help comes to them, or until the parents are contacted? These are the questions that we need to start asking. And we don't ask in schools because we take it for granted that either it's not ever going to happen, and this goes back to me saying that the hypocrisy of denying what went on when we were in schools, nothing has changed. If anything, it is worse. I never heard of cults and what have you that were operating to this degree when I was in school, or my peers who are Nigerian. Not to this degree. Sylvester was 11 years old. Now, I don't know how old these boys are, but I don't think they are that much older. They don't look like 18, 19-year-olds to me. They don't look that much older. Now, one of the boys by the name of Edward, let me just go back and give you his surname, Edward Brown. There's another video of this boy who was seen rubbing his private parts and trying to put his hand in the face of another child. If those of you that want the video, inbox me, I will send it to you. So these are children that are clearly ruling that school and are left to be as obnoxious as they want to be. Who is holding, or who were responsible for holding such children accountable? Because these boys seem to have been left to do whatever the hell they liked. You were already suspended. Most normal people would lie low. No, what they did was they went to Sylvester's dormitory and they beat the living daylights out of him and forced him to drink a substance that, eventually, I don't know what the autopsy report says. I don't know if they've had one. But I'm sure that contributed to his death, obviously. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was, why is it that we allow the schools to have so much power, and we as parents, let me put it this way. I have a thing that I say, that there's no such thing as positive passive parenting. No such thing. Positive, passive parenting. What do I mean by that? You cannot parent your child by not being involved in every aspect of their life. School is a big part of their life. When your child tells you that they are afraid, or you can sense that there is a change in their behavior, you need to pay attention. I say this when I am teaching about spotting signs of sexual abuse in your children. The thing that we have to understand for both very young children and other kids, children don't always have the vocabulary to be able to articulate what is going wrong with them. So what will often happen, they will exhibit what's troubling them through their behavior. Sometimes they can become very stubborn. But again, because of our culture and the way we bring up children, that's just seen as a child is disrespectful, beat the living daylights out of the child, because, we seem to have this thing that beating a child is the answer to everything. But we always have to pay attention that bit more, because children will become difficult, or you will see some behavioral challenges when something is not right. You will get that with very small children as well, where they can be either very clingy, just not listening, it happens. As a parent, it is your job to pay attention and try and figure out what's going on. My daughter was in a school, it wasn't a boarding school, it was a private school in primary. And an incident happened where I got an email from the school saying that my daughter had called another child a lesbian. I've shared this before. And the email just simply said, Isabel has called another child a lesbian. We do not tolerate that kind of language in school. So you need to speak to Isabel, but I know my child. And I also know the kind of home that I brought her up in. And I know that my daughter would never have just said that for no reason. So I called her. And after a while, it wasn't easy for her to tell me. She said the reason why she said that was because another girl straddled her and kissed her on the lips. And she asked the girl, why are you acting like a lesbian? Now, do you see these two statements are not even remotely the same? And can you see that having been given context, it completely changed the sequence of events and what had actually happened to my child? Well, it went downhill very quickly from there because Isabel, and there was so many different factors, race played a role in it, bullying, and, I was told that I'm aggressive. No black person can ever be upset or immediately I was tagged with the aggressive. And I'm like, we're not going to be going there today. We are going to be discussing what's happening with my daughter. Cut a long story short, I asked for their safeguarding policy. I asked for their bullying policy. I found out that this other child had tried to touch the private part of other children, and yet still that child was allowed to remain in school, and the blind eye completely turned against what was happening with her, and she had another sibling. Nothing was done. Now, in the throes of me trying to sort out with the school what was going to be done for my child and referring them to their bullying policy, anti-bullying policy, which said that in a situation like what had been described with my daughter, that child was supposed to have been removed from school pending an investigation. That didn't happen. What happened was, I can't remember how I found out, but I got my daughter a counsellor because she was quite traumatised by everything that was going on. A psychologist, actually, who's a personal friend of mine by the name of Diane Riney. Her sister Claudette is on here. So if you need help or anything like that in regards to children, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with Diane. She runs a fantastic service, absolutely phenomenal. And what I found out, I think it was through Diane, I can't quite remember now, but what I found out was my daughter had been crying herself to sleep because of what had been happening. Do you know what happened? I removed my daughter from that school almost immediately. And the only reason why I didn't yank her out from school immediately was because she said she would miss her friends. And I removed her from that school. Why? Because I knew that my daughter would not be protected in that environment. And that was not a boarding school. That was a day school. Even though I was threatened with having to pay £3,000 in lieu of notice. And I said, well, if you'd given me notice that my child would not be safe in your environment, that you could not protect my child, then I would have given you notice. You didn't give me notice. And therefore, I removed my child immediately. The problem that we have when it comes to some of us as African parents, sometimes, we take things for granted. Oh, we spoke to the school, the boys have been suspended. That's the end of it. That's not the end of it. You are not making any allowances for the fact that your child is still in that school with those children. And so therefore, there has to be an ongoing conversation with the school where that child has a go-to person in the event that something happens, of whom they can go to for protection in case they are scared. Now, there are so many things that I think that can be done. And this is why I was saying that it would have been really good to have a lot more people from that community in Nigeria and even here. I mean, the Nigerian High Commission is here and I have had conversations. So, this is not a conversation that is just on this Facebook Live. There's a lot that's going on and there's a lot that can be done. Where you have these environments, that these things are going on, as a parent, you can't afford ignorance. Ignorance can cost you your child's life or their welfare or their well-being. You have to know what's going on. You have to know, in the event that my child is sick, who do they go to and what is the protocol? I know of somebody whose only child died in a school in Ghana because the child was sick and the the housemaster just decided that they were not going to allow the child to go home. It is common. It is something that happens all the time. All the time. But why does it keep happening? I'll tell you why. Because parents have not come together as a collective to speak. There are reasons for it. When you have a school that is affluent or has affluent people in the school, you're dealing with money, you're dealing with power. Where you have cults that are operating in the school, it would be naive as it would be foolish of us to feel that the cult culture going on in the school is limited to just the school. Some of these parents are involved in cults. It is a power thing. So this person calls this person who are within the same cult, and they empower each other and they protect each other. So they will give you a form of justice and an investigation to keep you satisfied, but nothing really is happening. Nothing really is happening. But something can happen if the parents, because I do not believe that those who are evil outweigh those who are good. But if those who are good are only concerned about your own children, then nothing is going to change. And there's a lot I believe can be done in these situations that can start to change what is going on. Let me read some of your comments. Aisha Ankra says, everybody knows everybody in Nigeria, so the right thing never gets done. But that, yes, for those who have money. Dodgy says, one is supposed to be in Canada. That is correct. Kakra says, the film A Few Good Men comes to mind. I can't even argue with that, absolutely. Is it you? Eunice Roberts says, good evening. God bless you, and thank you for sharing as well. Sharon says, that's Niger for you, never facing responsibility or accountability. But that's the thing. We have become so used to the system being broken that we have just decided that, there's nothing we can do about it. But there is something you can do about it. There is something you can do about it. Private schools can only survive because of your dollar or because of your naira or because of your whatever. Private schools can only survive because of your money. Without your money, the school cannot survive. And so therefore, you actually are in a position of great power. It's not a state school. You are in a position of great power. But even with state schools, if parents come together as a collective and say, this is what we need to happen in our schools, it will start happening. The problem is, everybody is just minding their business, not realizing that the evil day comes to every man. It may not be your child today, but it could be your child or of somebody that you love tomorrow. That's the trick that we are missing. Guys, if you're watching, please share. We still have a little bit of time to go. I know it's 5 to 9, but we came on a little bit late, and I did say that I didn't want to be too time constrained on this particular one because there's some things that I think we need to be able to implement on here. Okay, so let me go on and read some more of your comments. Claudette, welcome, my love. Claudette says, good evening, Dilys. I have a colleague whose 12-year-old daughter tried to kill herself after being constantly bullied at a private school here. The school and police are treating her and her family like the perpetrators. The school have tried to silence them and have indirectly threatened them after her parents pulled her from the school. I think this is a private school problem. You're not wrong, because my experience with my daughter was not too dissimilar. They had the audacity to tell me that the children were from a respectable home. I said, meaning what? That my child, who is a victim, is not from a respectable home? All I know is that if my daughter had tried to put her finger in the private parts of another child, and I'm being graphic here because that's what happened, I can assure you my daughter would not still be in that school. They would have, at the time, I don't think that you would have just heard, you'd have just seen skid marks on the ground. They would have thrown her out in a minute. When I rang the borough under which this school comes under to report it, nothing was done. It is a problem, and that is why I said that I didn't want people to think that this is just something that happens in a Nigerian school or a Ghanaian school. It happens here. I was reading an article about the amount of sexual abuse that goes on in boys' boarding schools in this country. In this country. This is not a situation that discriminates. What I am saying is there's a certain way voices can come together to make schools accountable. The fact is, we are not doing it. We aren't doing it. And that is what the problem is. I am not in any way, shape or form, Claudette, surprised at how the family are being treated, because it was done to me. It was absolutely done to me and my family. And I cannot tell you the emotional stress and trauma I went through until I was able to remove my child from the school. Okay, so let me read some more comments. Alison Asafo J says, I read this morning those responsible have been sentenced to death. I'm wondering what happened to one of them that has disappeared to Canada. Oh dear, very sad. I don't know how they've been sentenced to death, because as far as I'm aware, there isn't a trial hasn't even happened yet. So I don't know how that is possible. I'll be interested to see that article. Margarita Cruz says, it's the first time I know about this story. What really happened to Sylvester? Well, that's it. You know, the boys are lying, which, you know, thankfully they've been caught on camera. So I don't see how they can lie. And then also you've got the school that are trying to cover it up. He was bullied and murdered by bullies. Absolutely. That is correct. Elisando Nije is watching. Thank you for joining. Sharon says, even when children are abused by relatives, etc., it's often ignored as well. You see, the fact is, oh, Apostle Isaac says First Lady is here as well. So Minister Shari, God bless you. Thank you for watching. I am very, very, very honoured to have you on here. So as I said, I'm a minister, one of the ministers at New Glory Chapel. So guys, do join. A lot of you want to know, where does all this, you know, wisdom and stuff come from? I've always said that, you know, I'm a praying woman. A lot of what I do is fueled by my beliefs and by praying and seeking God in these situations, because, you know, we are living in very, very perilous times, and we cannot rely just on our strength, because sometimes it's our faith that gets us through, you know, not in a way that makes you apathetic, because, you know, a lot of the times it's like, oh, let's just leave it to God, but we have to take action. You know, faith without works is dead. We have to take action as well. So it's important that we start to think of what can we do to put things in place to make our schools accountable so that our children can be safe. When we talk about our brother's keeper, it is applicable to other people's children. I always say that a real mother is a mother to all children. When you're only concerned about your own child, you're not concerned about your child. You have to look out for all children. I'm really interested to hear what Auntie Jenny has to say. Auntie Jenny says, if they are claiming that Sylvester agreed to be abused as part of the initiation, can they please share images of other children who went through that initiation? It would be nice to compare their injuries to that of Sylvester, and can they tell their stories? Absolutely, Auntie Jenny. It would be very interesting if they could do that. But I think it's disgraceful that people will now try to victim blame and say that this is what Sylvester wanted. I'm sure Sylvester never asked to die. He was only an 11-year-old boy sent to school to get an education. One of the other things I wanted to point out, what the father was saying is he had sent his other children to the school and they hadn't had any issues. And he was making reference to his older daughter. Let me tell you this, parents. What boys go through in boarding schools is very different from girls. It is a lot more aggressive and a lot more violent. A lot more aggressive and a lot more violent. So yes, it's possible that your daughter could go to school and not have real serious issues in terms of physical violence, but with boys it's very different. Because it's seen as a way to toughen them up, but it's seen as a way for the older boys to show their power. So the fact that your daughter was okay in a school does not automatically mean that your son is going to be okay in that school. And in a situation where you are having to give your child money upon money because they are having their pocket money taken from them, alarm bells should start to ring. Alarm bells should start to ring at that very point. My son was in a boarding school in Ghana for a short space of time. And I found out after I'd gone to the school that the headmaster had slapped my son in the face. I hear he had a hand imprint. Unfortunately for the headmaster, I flew back to London. And my parents, who were entrusted with my son, didn't tell me. Why they didn't tell me is a whole other story. I don't know why. But I found out via one of my sisters when I came back to London. I mean, I was annoyed with everyone because I couldn't understand why I was kept in the dark. As soon as I got back to London, it was that very day I called the school Because I'd gone to the school to meet the headmaster to say, oh, thank you for looking after my son. You know, he's come from England, blah, 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 blah. That's me. I'm very hands-on. I want to meet the headmaster. I want to meet the teachers. Where is he sleeping? What's happening in the school? I need to know. Then I find out that my son was slapped about 3 times in his face by the headmaster. I came back to London. I found out that day. I called the school. And I said, Mr. So-and-so, I can't remember his name. I said, I understand that you slapped my son. Can you believe the headmaster pretended to be somebody else? But I'm very good with voices, so I knew who I was speaking to because I just had a meeting with him just a couple of days before. And I said to him, you are lucky that I'm finding this out now because I'd have slapped you in your face. When it comes to my children, I am not normal. But that, I'm just being honest. This is what I said to him. And I said, paying £1,000-something to fly back to Ghana, I said, is no issue for me. It's just money. This is my child. I said, but I'll tell you what's going to happen. I am removing my son from your school, but until I find him a school, I am not paying a dime in fees. I was paying in dollars. I said, I'm not paying a dime in school fees. And if you are a man, remove my son from the school. That is what I told him. I didn't pay any fees till I removed my son and got him another school. Let me tell you something. The teachers of your children and the headmasters need to know that you are a psychotic parent. They need to know that if I touch this woman's son, or if I touch this man's daughter, we are dead. They need to know that. Because until they are aware that if anything happens to your child in their care, all hell will break loose, nobody will look out for your child. You need to put the fear of God into the hearts of anybody that is responsible for your child. What you cannot do is assume, oh, they're okay because. They say assumption is the beginning of all cock-ups. Don't assume. Let me read some of the comments here. Kerry says, it's that statement, honour thy mother and thy father and don't bring shame. Is that belief that needs to be broken? Break the cycle of ignorance. That is true. And that's why I said that some of this also culture is a part of it. Because when you go to school back in Africa, your teachers are their demigods. Your teachers, you know, it's like if your teacher rings home and says, Dilys did, before you're asked any question, punishment, that there is no negotiation. Your teacher said it's gospel. But we need to break out of that. It should be, my child said it's gospel. My child told me. And because my child told me, that is it. As parents, we need to get to that place. We need to cultivate relationships with our children such that they can speak to us. Having this culture of only speak when spoken to. Daddy comes home, children just scatter. They speak to daddy with their hands behind their back. Let me tell you something, respect and fear are not the same thing. Your child can fear you, but they don't respect you. Start to cultivate a relationship with your children so that they can speak to you. Because even when you have a relationship with your kids, they still find it hard to say, I'm being sexually abused. This uncle is touching me. This boy is abusing me. This teacher is violating me. This person is bullying me. Even then, how much more when you don't have that relationship with your children? You cannot afford to passively parent your child. You must be involved. Auntie Jenny says, regarding lesbianism and homosexuality in our boarding schools, anyone denying that is a liar. Absolutely they are. My school matron told me that it was an exploration of puberty by kids, which normally goes away when they get the freedom to live freely in society. I complained about my school mother and some seniors touching me then. Safeguarding is zilch in boarding schools. And Auntie Jenny is actually a lawyer. She's a Nigerian lady. I call her Auntie Jenny because she's wonderful, very supportive. And she, you know, gives such wisdom on so many different topics. You can follow her, you know, on her Facebook page as well. This is my frustration, the fact that we seem to deny, lie. Let's pretend it doesn't happen and it will go away. Yes, something will go away, but what may go away may be your child. Sylvester is not here. Sylvester can never come back. His parents can never have that child back. But for those of us whose children are still here, there is something that we need to do that involves us being united, angry enough, passionate enough, and not taking no for an answer. This issue regarding cults in our schools, somehow we have to address it. Do I have all the answers? No, I don't. That is why we're having these conversations. That is why we are having these conversations. Let me see what Eunice is saying. So, angry with parents who allow badly behaved children to dodge punishment. Usually this enabling ends up being a lifetime pattern. You're absolutely right. Asol Akofa, thank you for being on here. Anita says, do we take safeguarding seriously in Africa? Sadly, I think not. No, we don't. Anita, because you're using your status as admin, I can't read all your comments. It's kind of giving me just half and I can't read all. So that's a shame. No, we don't take safeguarding seriously because we don't actually know what safeguarding is. If I went into a school in Ghana or Nigeria and I said, can you explain to me what safeguarding children is? I don't believe I would get an answer. I don't believe I would get an answer. And I think, and therein lies the problem. We have to strip back and go back to basics and start to put these frameworks in place in our schools. This is the kind of stuff, and why I wanted to have this conversation, that you go to your education minister in your state, in Nigeria, or wherever, or however it worked, you go to the person responsible for education and you begin to have these conversations saying, what do we do and how do we implement these things? It is not that difficult. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Speak to some of us that are aware of these things. Speak to people. There are so many people that work within social services, social care in this country that can give you the framework necessary to implement in your schools that can begin to safeguard children and start making people not only accountable, but make it more difficult for those who are not in schools with good intentions to operate. That is what we need to do. That is what we need to do. I'm going to read a few more comments. And then we're going to go into the conclusion. Millie, thank you for watching. Millie makes amazing cakes. So if you need a cake, go to Millie. Godwin Mary says, it is so sad that cultists are literally normal in our society nowadays. Yes, it is. And as I said, the children are getting younger, younger and younger. What we have to do as parents is prepare our children. Listen, we live in a time where literally the devil is after our kids. And the devil is in some of these kids, as you can see, as we're reading here. And for this reason, there are conversations that we have to have with our children if we are sending them out from our home to be within the company of children who are brought up differently to them. So if you are putting these children, your children, in those environments, the least you can do is have a conversation with them. The least you can do is say, look, I'm aware that when you go to school, there are some seniors that would like to touch your private parts. I am aware that they may ask you to go into this situation and they will tell you that if you tell anybody that you're going to die or they're going to kill us. But what will kill you is if you don't tell us, because anything can happen and we can't protect you. But I always say to parents, make sure that your voice is the first voice that your children hear, that you are not the counter voice, because the counter voice always plays catch up. The counter voice always plays catch up. If you have this conversation with your children and then someone says to them that I want you to join a cult, they will remember what they were told. If you don't say anything to your children and that's the first voice that they hear, they have to sit there and process the authenticity of the threat, how present that danger really is, and whether they can risk it. You make your child solely responsible for their own protection. And that's not what we're supposed to do as parents. We're supposed to make our children understand that we are there to protect them. Guys, if 5 of you could share this live, it would be great. I think we're going to wrap up at around 9:30. So I'm going to make this like an hour and a half so that we can get all your views and everything on here. So Kerry says, I was 13 years old, subject to abuse and also school bullying, and I was 13 years and subject to abuse and also tried to take my life. The abuse lasted years. And the abuse lasted years. Children as young as 5 taking their life or go on to be bullies or victims. It's grooming. It is a form of grooming. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And yes, we're hearing children of very young ages committing suicide. How can a 5-year-old commit suicide? How can an 8-year-old go and hang themselves? There is something that we are not doing that we need to be doing. Nanukia, thank you for being on here. Yemi Ogun says, corruption on all levels. A good school should not cover such behaviour. You're absolutely right. Tasha says, true, or some of them will withdraw from socialisation. Indeed. KB Osaji, thank you for joining. Kelly Harris, thank you for being on here. Rosemary Abuba says, best decision. I would totally do the same thing. Yes, I mean, you got to be, I think you're talking about being a bit of a psycho parent. Auntie Jenny says, we parents must take responsibility too. And this is what I'm saying, that there is no such thing as positive passive parenting. You've got to be hands-on. And when I get into the conclusion, there's certain suggestions that I have for some of you that have got children back home or relatives who have got kids in boarding schools. I think there needs to be a campaign by those people who are based in Nigeria to rally and put something together on how you want to demand change in schools. And it can be done if you're serious. Your embassy, for those of you in England, the Nigerian embassy is here. I'm already speaking with somebody. I'm not even Nigerian. Well, not technically. Do you understand? So it's important that we make it our business, that we find it in our hearts that it's important enough, because Sylvester is all of us, our son. Sylvester is symbolic of all of us, our children. Sylvester is not just one man's son or one woman's son. Sylvester is our son. Amen? That is how we have to see Sylvester. The moment we see Sylvester as someone else's child and a problem back there, we've missed it. Then it means that child would have died for nothing. We have to start to do something to protect our children. Claudette says, oh my God, this is exactly what's happening with my colleague. And I also referred her to my sister. Yep. Amadorine says, we will always be aggressive when we know our rights are not easily led. Cyrillian Pearl, thank you for being on here. You're saying you are so right. It can also manifest in self-harm. Yes, it does. And for those of you that don't know what self-harm is, it means sometimes children will cut themselves and they'll do all sorts of things themselves because it's a cry for help. So again, that's another sign that parents can look out for. If you see any cut marks on your child, be sensitive. Do not just yank them and try and bully them into telling you. Let them know that them speaking to you, it's safe for them to do so, that they won't be judged, they won't be ridiculed. And if they want you to keep their conversation confidential, that they can trust that you will do that. As parents, maybe I need to do something on parenting as well, just to help some parents who this may be new to. And this is not about condemning anybody. We only know what we're taught. Yeah. So Cyrillian Pearl says, you are so right. It can also manifest in self-harm, where their vulnerability and feelings of isolation in their peer bullying situation can sadly lead to devastation. Can have a lasting impact. Safeguarding policies in schools need to be upheld. Well, they also need to be implemented. They need to be created in some of these situations. Belladonna says, this is a long one. This hush-hush culture and turning a blind eye to things we are not comfortable discussing mentally and emotionally. People are more concerned with protecting families' name than holding affluent people accountable. The same when children are molested by influential people. I wish his parents had been more concerned about his welfare than their desire for him to be educated at a prestigious but dangerous institution. And on that note, let me just say, and I haven't been able to corroborate this, but my understanding is this is the third child who has died in this school. As I said, I've not been able to corroborate it, but this is what I have been told, that this is either the third or fourth death in Durham College. I am so angry over this issue. I have refrained to comment on all platforms until now. Part of my reason is because I partly blame the parents, but don't want to come across as insensitive. I absolutely understand you. Just a tragic situation. That boy should have been removed from that school. African parents give teachers too much power over their children. I can't disagree with you. Yes, we do. If women can be relocated because of the abuser, then why on earth do they force children to stay in the same arena? You did right taking your child out and getting her support. I took her out immediately, even though they tried to sting me with £3,000 worth of fees, which I got a barrister and I challenged, and I did not pay a dime. Because even my barrister was saying that, no, I should pay. I said, I'm not paying it. I'm not paying it. And I didn't. Auntie Jenny says, the bad children's parents have responsibility too. Yes, they do. Children don't just start acting up and being bullies. Something is happening at home and the children are getting away with it. So they become accustomed to thinking such attitudes are okay. And as I said, this Edward Brown, or whatever his name is, there's another video of him, as I said, rubbing his private parts and bullying another child. Clearly, this is his behaviour. Excuse me, he's used to this kind of behaviour. Shireen CJ says, this Kemi Olunloyo, her head is not correct. Oh, that silly woman that made that horrible statement. To make such a derogatory statement sounds like she don't do this so-called rite of passage herself, is protected of this cult culture. Who knows? Because it's not normal for somebody as a woman. I'm assuming she's a mother. I may be wrong. Excuse me. To say that Sylvester wanted to be a part of that cult. I mean, I don't even know how she could even make that statement. Auntie Jenny says we must tell our children and prepare our children about what they are likely to see at school and what they must do to report if it happens. Manya, thank you for joining. Anointed Rich, bless you as well. Mame Oda, thank you for being on here. Tasha says everyone mind their business until it reaches their doorstep. Absolutely. Theo Alate Papoy, thank you for joining. Ifya says thank you for discussing this. Thank you for watching and being here to support, guys. If you can share this, it would be great. Kerry Mustin said the police should be involved when it comes to abuse. Okay, so this is the problem. When you have a system that everywhere there is corruption and bribery. Like I said, justice works for the poor. When you have no money and you steal, you'll be punished. If you have no money and you rape somebody, you'll be punished. If you have no money and you defraud somebody, you'll be punished. But have money and defraud somebody and you know the right people, no justice. Have money and rape somebody that has no money, you definitely ain't going to see no justice. And that's the way it is. Until the people get tired of accepting that that's the way it is. Dochi says there's a lot of bullying, abuse and drugs in private schools here and they are above the law. So, Rebecca Jasper, thank you for being on here. Thank you for those of you who have never been on here before and are enjoying this show. Please share. Your views are very important and that is why I am reading them out. Sierra Leone Pearl said, it's so sad that the family is experiencing secondary victimization by the response of the school and accountability. The school were disgraceful. They were more annoyed at the fact that they shared the video and pictures of Sylvester on social media. And that's all they were interested in. Well, you know, why are you doing that? But thankfully, the school has been shut down pending investigation. But we don't want tick boxes. What we want to know is, are the school really being investigated? And what is the level of accountability? The boys that have fled the country, what is being done to bring them back? The embassies in the country that they are believed to have fled to, because they left the country. I don't believe that they went via private jets. Even if they did, they would know where that plane would have landed. And so therefore, the embassies in those countries need to be contacted and they need to be told that those children are required for a murder investigation of a boy in school. That needs to happen. But that would also, I would believe, involve the Nigerian government in getting involved in trying to make that happen or in making that happen. There are so many comments on here, guys. Abla Jifat Gomashi, she is a wonderful, wonderful lady. She's one of the MPs in Ghana. And I would like to welcome you to the show. It's really lovely to have you. She's been very, very supportive of everything that I do. And I really do appreciate you, James. Owen, thank you for being on here. Akosia Ophibia, thank you for being on here as well. Rebecca Jasper says, safeguarding is zilch in most UK local authorities when it's reported by a parent about school abuse and trauma. I can't argue with you because I've had that first-hand experience. Stephanie Igbodu, thank you for being on here as well. Ola Olomo, thank you for being on here. Millie C says, a Bollywood movie, My School Mother, will open your eyes to the seemingly dark side of Nigerian boarding life, and some people have confirmed it is so. Yes, sorry, Nollywood rather, not Bollywood. Rosemary Obwa says, your children should have a bond with their parents where they can discuss anything with their parents. They shouldn't be scared off by their parents. May Sylvester's soul rest in peace. Amen. Owu Murikua of Orisechi says, teachers and anybody you leave your children with must know that he or she is dead when you should know that he or she is dead when touched wrongfully or harm your child. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. We have to start to put the fear of God in people who are responsible for our children. Belladonna says, I'm a psychotic parent. My son went to school briefly in Sierra Leone in 2019. When I tell you my presence was felt in that school, I saw a teacher beating a pupil for lateness and had to step in to stop her. I told the teacher and her headmaster that if they ever touched my child, I would beat them up in the school assembly in front of everyone. Discipline my child, but do not beat him like he committed a crime. Safe to say, no one ever touched my son until we returned safely back to England. And I'm telling you, this is what you have to do. I remember being in primary school where a child was beaten by a teacher, and both the mother and the father beat the living daylights out of that teacher. I will not call their name. And they threw them down the stairs. So, I'm not saying be violent, but what I'm saying is put the fear of God in any person that is responsible for your child, that if any harm comes to my child, I will hold you personally accountable. Abla says, I would like the framework for my students, but this is what I'm saying. We have to start to implement the framework of how this should work. So I'm going to have to start wrapping up now. This is the conclusion. We need to stop being in denial of what goes on in our schools and what our children need. Why do I say this? Many of us have been to boarding school. And if we haven't had a personal experience, we know a child who did, who is now a grown-up and is facing the trauma of what they went through. So if you are going to send your children to school, into the boarding house, why are you assuming that anything has changed? We can't assume that things have changed and therefore be apathetic to leaving our children 24 hours a day for how many weeks on end without having direct contact with them. When I mentioned about the LGBTQ bill and me saying that we were fully aware that children were, lesbians and gays in school, and that we needed to recognize, this is not about acceptance, but recognize that it's happening, instead of pretending that it's a new phenomenon that is being introduced into Ghana and therefore it's nonsense. It's not true. But for as long as we are not honest about a situation, how do we go about resolving it? We cannot. And all these things happening in our school means that we need to start to take responsibility as parents. And if we take responsibility as parents, only then will we be able to hold institutions accountable for protecting our children. For as long as we live in denial, oh, this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen, what you're doing is you're throwing your children to the wolves. Because when they come back to report the very thing that you claim doesn't exist, how are they going to be protected? So that's one thing that we need to stop doing, because denial acts as an enabler. What denial does is it empowers, and it indirectly through the back door says it's okay. But when we say that this is happening, we take away that power of darkness because it is in the light. Okay? Evil only operates in darkness and denial. Remember that. Speak to your children. Have conversations with your children. Start to befriend your kids. For those of you with younger children, look at their body language. When you see that your child is uncomfortable around a particular person, be it another child or an adult, it's not always an adult, sometimes it's children. Look at Sylvester's situation. Pay attention. Titles mean nothing. Do not look at your child looking uncomfortable and thinking, oh, but that's just auntie so-and-so. Oh, that's just their cousin. I read a story yesterday of an 11-year-old girl that was impregnated by her brother. She gave birth, okay, for her brother. Yes, it was only when she was removed from that situation, after she had the child and they did a DNA test, that it was confirmed that her brother was responsible. She was always uncomfortable around her brother, but it was assumed it's your brother, so there's no problem. Let me tell you something, parents, open your eyes. Titles mean nothing. Look at your child's body language. Stop forcing your children to say hello to this person and give uncle this a hug. And stop doing that. And I digress slightly, but all these things come from somewhere. And I'm making the connection between parents taking things for granted. Stop doing that. Look at your child, get to know your child and understand how they work. Understand what your child is saying when they're not speaking. Understand what your child is communicating to you in the absence of words, because that's when you are really having a conversation. There is no such thing as positive passive parenting. I have touched on that. This acronym ACT. A stands for accept what your child is telling you. Don't try and convince them that it's not that bad. Don't try and tell them that they've got it wrong. Accept what your child is telling you. C, contact the school and make your voice and your feelings heard. T, take action. Do not come away without an accountability process for the school and a period of review for them to get back to you and tell you what they have done. The acronym is ACT. Accept what your child is telling you. Contact the school. Take action. Ask questions and be hands-on. Ask who is sharing a dormitory with your child. Ask to see the dormitory. What are the age ranges of the children? Are the children in dormitories with senior children? And what seniors are allowed to be in that space? Ask that question. And demand that if there are any changes in terms of the dynamics of that dormitory, that you as the parent are informed. I would go a step further and say, parents of the children in dormitories should meet. You have to start, listen, if there's a cult operating in the school, the parents need to start to form their own cult. If there is a cult in the school, you, the parents, form your own cult. Form your own cult. And the initiation into that cult are parents that care for their children. Form your own cult. Yes, we parents have come together. We want to see where our children are sleeping. Who are the children in that dormitory? Oh, you're Mr. So-and-so. Oh, you're Mrs. So-and-so. Oh, you're Miss So-and-so. Wonderful. Our children are sharing this space. That is what you need to do. That is what you need to do. Safeguarding in schools is a must. It shouldn't be on a wish list, especially for those of you paying big money for big names. What are your safeguarding policies? And you should make sure that every school starts to run helter-skelter to ensure that come 2022, that every school has a safeguarding policy, no matter how basic. But there must be a document that says that in the event of X, Y, Z, this is what we are going to do as a school. There should be a pastoral team or a welfare team in the school. A place where children can go to if they are worried. In addition to that, I believe there should be an anonymous suggestion box, whether it's an online platform that is created for children to anonymously state their concerns in every school. In every school. There has to be a process. There has to be a format. There has to be a way where the voices of children are not silenced. There's a reason why my former charity was called Who Will Hear My Cry. Because these children are crying out and nobody's hearing them. And that has to change. So on that note, guys, it is 9:30. I have got to wrap up. I did say an hour and a half, so you probably have about 5 minutes. But those are my suggestions in what I feel that we can do to begin to start to change this situation for our children. Passive parenting doesn't work. Begin to keep your schools accountable. Go to your senators in your different states in Nigeria and make a demand that in these schools, this is what we want to happen. Because until you open your mouth and say something, these cults will be more empowered. Because let me tell you something, these cults already believe that they are untouchable and they are invincible. So if nothing comes of this, what that says is, right, we are even more emboldened because there's nothing anybody can do because we have people in high places. But as a parent, when you come together, you are in a higher place. Your money is your currency to ensure the safeguarding of your children. Your money. That school has been closed down. Do you know how many thousands of naira and dollars that school is losing if they shut that school down? Your money is your power. Use it wisely. Use your money wisely. Okay, so there's so many comments here. Oh, Lord Jesus, there's so many comments here. So Syrian said, very comprehensive suggestions, Dilys. Thank you very much. Rosemary says, great discussion. Thank you. Rebecca Jasper says, safeguarding referrals from parents don't work in the UK. Yep, that's very difficult. Princess says, oh my God, Dilys, I'm loving your suggestions. God bless you. Princess is another great lady who started a charity for widows. She was widowed recently. And I did speak at one of her events as well. As you can tell, when you come on this platform and there's anything that you're doing, I do like to draw people's attention to what you're doing. I do speak with Dilys to start as a way of rebuilding our communities. But we have to start by rebuilding ourselves. And this is why I do speak with Dilys, that if the change can be local, it will grow, and it will grow. Okay, so I don't just do this because I have nothing to do on a Sunday night. As you can see, I'm there doing this to my neck. I'm having extreme pain in my neck and neck spasms, but this is important. So, you know, I'm bearing the pain and trying to look cute by not, you know, switching my neck around, but it is what it is. So these are some of the suggestions that I have, and I'm sure that there's a lot more, and please keep them coming in the suggestion box. But I would say, if there's any of you that have any concerns, if there's any events that you want to put together and you need my voice to be lent to what it is that you are doing, I am more than willing to support. Ghana and Nigeria, we are brothers and sisters. I have a Nigerian family. We are brothers and sisters. So I don't see any difference between Ghana and Nigeria or Sierra Leone or any other place where there are children that need our voice to come together. So if you need me, I am here. If anybody is in need of coaching, I do 45 minutes of coaching that is free. So you are most welcome to inbox me. If you have any events that you would like me to host, I am your girl. I was going to be launching something called Dining with Dilys in the new year, but with this Omicron virus going on, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to hold fire on that. But if you need me, you know where to find me. So thank you very much for watching. Please continue to share this video. Thank you for your comments. There are so many. I do apologize if I didn't get to yours and wasn't able to read them out loud, but I will definitely be giving you a follow-up on what is going to be happening. But like I said, for those of you that are looking to put any events together, let me know. I am in talks with somebody in regards to the Nigerian High Commission in London. And we are going to be the voice of these children. Our children, our voice. They are the only voice that our voice is the only voice that our children have. Let's use it wisely. Let's use it together. And as I always say, in all you're getting, get understanding. God bless you. Thank you so much. And I am done. So do like the page. Do follow the page. Share away. Have a lovely Sunday. Have a good week. I will also be doing a form of Speak with Dilys on Instagram in the new year. I have decided to do that. How the format is going to be, I am not sure yet. Okay, thank you so much for being on here. And Esther, thank you as well. John, thank you for being on here as well. You know, I've seen quite a few new names. Vanessa Bob, thanks for being on here. God bless you. Vanessa Bob, I think you do something to do with teen mums. So do check these people out. My darling princess, how are you? She says, great topic again. God bless you for speaking to us. God bless you for being here. For Apostle Isaac and First Lady Shari, God bless you. I am so honoured. I don't know if Bishop Dorothy is on here. I know Minister Anita's here. My family, Minister Princess D is here. And it's just so lovely to be a part. And this is what community is. You know, so if you want to catch me, I also minister in online on our New Glory Chapel platform as well. So if you want some inspiration and encouragement for your week, by all means, come on. We're on 6 a.m. every morning. Do let me know. Send me an inbox. Those of you that have my WhatsApp details, it's always on there as well. Guys, gotta go. It's been an hour and a half of good conversation. My heart goes out to Sylvester's family. I did say that I spoke to Sylvester's auntie earlier on this morning. Her name is Josephine Say, and she was saying that, you know, it was unfortunate she wasn't able to come on, but her problem is, and she's saying that justice never seems to work, and that they also have a nephew who was murdered in Nigeria. He was stabbed. He'd just been in the University of Birmingham, went to Nigeria, and he was just accosted and stabbed to death. And she said that her hurts and her pain is the fact that justice doesn't seem to ever be served. That when people are able to hide themselves and what have you, they end up not facing any justice and there not being any accountability. But we have to change that. And, you know, there's a lot that she had to say. And she said that, you know, she was happy that this topic was being discussed, and she thanked us. And, you know, she had quite a few suggestions saying that she felt that really the teachers should all have been arrested. And as I said, it's unfortunate she couldn't be here to speak herself, but she did say that she was happy for us to have this discussion, and we're also thankful that you've lent your time and space in being here. So God bless you. Have a wonderful week. Do be happy, and do make sure that you continue to be a voice for your children. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.